Did you know 60% of the world population, those who are above 15 years, belongs to the employment category? Have you ever thought since when this concept of employment was born? Was there a time that the concept of employment did not exist in this world? Have you ever thought about it? If we really need to know about these facts, what we need to do, we need to start studying about human history that we barely know. Thousands of years ago, there was a time where the loaf of bread might buy a day of peace, and the promise mean to more than a kingdom. Life among people was in harmony. Nobody was working for money. Nobody was having the desire to manufacture the excess and generate profits in massive scale like we are experiencing today. Hence, the competition among people was not there. Everybody lived in harmony with peace. They enjoyed the life to the fullest, even though life was so simple, even though these technological advancements was not there few thousands years ago. So few thousands years ago, everybody could live the life as they wish to live because nobody was there to control their life. Nobody was there to determine what time they are going to wake up, what time they are going to sleep, whether they need to go to work, whether they need to make money or not. During this time, the concept of money also was not there. When someone need to consume another product or service that they didn't produce, what they did, whatever they produce, they carried it to the market or to another person who produce something different and that they want and used to exchange the goods and services in between them. Everybody was producing something in the society, not just as individuals. Through family lines, they used to pass the skill set, knowledge, and the expertise related to a particular area, particular industry. There were people manufacturing metal items. There were people and family lines focusing on farming. So they had all the expertise, knowledge, skill set through family lines about farming and get the maximum harvesting. There were people who were into merchants. They were selling goods and services in the market. They were having shops, small shops. And there were traders who used to buy and sell in wholesale level. And there were people who were doing carpentering, preparing wooden stuff for people's consumption. So all these industries were connected with the family line. That family line used to master the skill and the art and pass it to the next generation. So that family line, every generation had the same knowledge, same skill set, expertise, and they carried the knowledge and the expertise forward to the next generation. Few thousands years ago, everyone was a producer of something valuable for the society. Hence, we can call them as entrepreneurs, which means they had the independency to make their own choices and control their life and time. What people used to do after they produce enough for their consumption, they invested time on art, literature, science. During the battle between people and the nature, they extracted lots of essence and knowledge. Some falling into arts, some falling into literature, some falling into science. So, how it was possible for our historical ancient men and women to find time to develop these arts, literature, science when there were no fundamental education about these aspects? Because they had the time freedom. They were controlling their time. They did not work for money. They worked to generate what they want to consume. After that, rest of the time, they invested to study the nature. Some got interest about arts, some got interest about science, some got interest about literature. So what we are experiencing today as art, literature, science is the reflection or the outcome of the battle between human and the nature. In addition to that, they invested their additional time to educate their own kids on values, skills that they need to transfer to the next generation. They invested time on traveling, spirituality, well being, and they created innovative solutions to deal with the nature as well. The whole society was united as one. There were no competition between each other. They lived together as one, as a unity. So everybody was living in the harmony. This is the same world few thousands years ago. At the end of 18th century, the industrial revolution erupted to this world. What it did, it monopolized the entire manufacturing sector and it start dominating the whole manufacturing sector related to different industries. What it means by domination, few people took the control over the production, distribution, and generating massive amount of profit. So their goal was creating or manufacturing the excess and delivering it to the whole population, whatever the products or services they used to manufacture. Small layer in the society who had the control over the money and the power wanted to squeeze more and more profits through these bigger scale manufacturing plants. To run these operations, they wanted more and more employees. But remember, human was moving through generations as entrepreneurs. They didn't work for someone else. They worked for themselves under different industries. They used to produce stuff to the society and as well as for their consumption. Now that world got upside down with this industrial revolution because industrial revolution wanted more and more employees, labor power into their factories, into their business operations. So there were no other option. This top layer who controlled the power and money, they had to work on planting a new belief system in people's mind who enjoyed their life and the freedom and the independency up to that level for thousands of years. So what is this new belief system? They had to give the birth for a new propaganda. So they started superimposing the propaganda about this new life, new living standards, employment. How they could do it? They did it through the education, media, religious institutes, and creating rules. Through the traditional education system that they started to implement, they started limiting people's education and the skill set as they want. So the average people in the general society couldn't produce anything properly by themselves alone because education was limited to small segments. So any individual didn't have the knowledge, complete knowledge to produce anything completely since then. So they were integrated into these factories and operations and gave them a small piece from the whole production. So they were mastering that skill, but they never knew how to produce the whole thing. So under this propaganda, they created and they implanted this new belief system, especially on the employment based living standards and concept of work, concept of family, concept of wealth, freedom, life. That is somewhere around 18th century, end of 18th century. So all these concepts were manufactured by this thin layer in the society who had the control over power and money and who ran this massive production to generate massive scale profit. So through that, they could convince the population as they wanted. And they could fix the biggest problem that they faced with their operations, lack of manpower. During the early stage, it was fascinating. It was comfortable. It was interesting. But if we fast forward 100 years since the Industrial Revolution, today, what is the definition of life? Between the birth and the death, early 20 plus years, people are investing their time, energy, money to get the education at the best level. Why? Because they need to get a good employment to make good amount of income to have a better life. So after 20-25 years, somehow, if they are lucky enough today, they will be integrated into a company. So they will have to work either in the same company or many different companies up until 55, 60 years old. After that also, they have to find a way to make money. But most of the organizations, will terminate employments after someone reached to 55, 60 years old because they are too slow to contribute to the company. So after someone get retired at 55 or 60, what is going to be their life? They are becoming dependents of their kids or someone else. Those who are having some kind of a saving, some kind of an asset, going to retain with the minimum living standards until they kick the bucket. So this is the ordinary life from birth to death for over 90 to 95% of the world population today in 21st century. This is not the life human used to live few thousands years ago. They had the whole control over their time, over their life, about what they are going to do, about what they are not going to do. That freedom was an essential feature in that society few thousands years ago. What we do not know, what happened during last 100 to 150 years. Mass majority of the people lost their independency, the control over their life, over their time, because of this propaganda came through the education system and society and family lines. There's a famous saying by Karl Marx, a philosopher: keep people from their history and they are easily controlled. What it means, people without the connection to their past or history are very much easily get manipulated. So this is the true story when we look at our society today. Over 95% of the world population are being manipulated through the propaganda, this tiny layer in the society planted, manufactured 100, 150 years ago. So till the time it is active. Because of that, people are accepting this is the life, this is normal. This is not normal. You have been programmed to think and believe this is normal. This is not a life. How come it is normal? Come into this world, taking the birth, and you are leaving the world after 70, 80 years old. In between that, what you do, you prepare yourself to get a better job. Then you invest your whole life to work for someone else. Barely you generate enough income for your kids' education, for your monthly survival, or to have a minimum house or vehicle. After that, most of the cases, people do not have enough money to run their remaining life until they pass away. Is this life? If this is life, better not to have such type of life. When it comes to today, every human being belongs to employment or self-employment, are being controlled by tiny layer in the society, directly or indirectly. But we are human beings. We can take the control back to us. For that, you need to study the history. You need to study other solutions and options. How some people are breaking free from this program, from this propaganda, and achieving their freedom, taking the control over their life and time. You have to invest your time to study about it, about the people who achieved the freedom, who started from the same society, who got manipulated through the same education system. But at a point, they started fighting back. While all these things were happening during last 100, 150 plus years, particularly during last 50 years, this thin layer in the society who was having the control over the power and the money identified technology can increase the productivity related to their business operations and bring them massive scale of profits. So they started utilizing the technology in a massive scale with technological advancements. As a result of that, the birth of the unemployment came into the picture. The same thin layer 120, 150 years ago during the Industrial Revolution, who wanted to produce products and services in massive scale and run their operations in massive scales to attract more and more profits, was struggling to find enough labor power, employees. So they had to invent this propaganda to make people believe on the concept called employment. But during last 30 to 50 years, it changed upside down with technological advancement. No longer they need the traditional manpower into their operations because technology can increase the productivity more than what human can bring into the operation. So birth of mass unemployment came into the picture during last 30 to 50 years. But one thing never got changed. What is that? The propaganda, this thin layer who had the control over power and money, who's having the control over power and money today, they never wanted to change this propaganda. They started 120, 150 years ago. So the same propaganda, same belief system about the concept of employment, about concept of education came through traditional education, through the society, through family lines, and through religious institutes, through politicians, and from everywhere. Over 97, 95% of the world population getting programmed to believe concept of employment is still valid and exist. But day by day, hour by hour, technological advancements replacing the manpower from these operations because technological advancement can increase the productivity and generate massive scale of profits for these top players who run the major operations in the world. Hence, when it comes to today, the concept of employment is an obsolete idea, no longer valid. But because of the propaganda coming through the traditional education, society, and all other media, politicians, religious institutes, people keep following the same program. People keep working to get a better education and find a better job and have a better life. What they can't see, better education will never give them a better job. And when there are no better jobs or at least a job, there are no better living standards. Rising unemployment, despite whether it is a developed country or developing country, is a very much common phenomenon. It is not an accident. But the politicians and this whole system trying to paint it like an accident. It is not an accident. It is the well expected outcome of these technological advancements. So, what we need to understand, if the concept of employment is an obsolete idea when it comes to 21st century, following the traditional process to get better education in terms of finding a good job to have a better life is going to be an obsolete idea. So my question, why you are following the norm while you are having the opportunity to see all the facts and figures bringing you the convincing understanding, no longer you can find a better job even though you have the best education qualifications. There are very few jobs that people can contribute through their labor power because those jobs are not easily replaceable. Technology or robots cannot replace them. That is the only reason certain jobs are not going to be replaced by the technology. But mass majority of ordinary jobs going to be replaced and already being replaced. So you need to ask this question from you. Where you are investing most of your time in your life, in your early life? Are you following the norm and investing considerable amount of money, time, and energy to get the limited education? I'm not telling we should stop taking the education. I'm telling this limited education coming through the traditional process is not going to help you anymore. You need to cross all the boundaries and learn everything. So when you are learning everything, you are seeing opportunities to build your own income sources, ultimately to become your own boss, to become an entrepreneur. That is the only solution which can help you to get out of this complicated, fake cycle, which is not going to help you, at least to have a average life. There's a famous saying by Muhammad Yunus, one of the greatest entrepreneurs in this century. All human beings are born entrepreneurs. Some get the chance to unleash that capacity. Some never got the chance, never knew that he or she has that capacity. Every human being, by default, carrying all the qualities and skill set to become their own boss, become an entrepreneur, to create something, to produce something. But this traditional education process coming through the propaganda and the society who are keep telling us to believe the employment concept is still valid, and all other media or politicians preachings going to convince us to believe this concept of employment is still valid. If you need to achieve the freedom, if you need to take control over your life, your time, you need to stop depending on someone else. It can be the government, it can be the employer, it can be someone else. The moment you stop depending on someone else, the moment you take the control over your life, over your finances, over your time, you're going to be free. Until I meet you with another episode related to the same story that we are going through in 21st century, think what you need to do. Study beyond boundaries. Study how successful people have become successful. Follow them. Try to getting into positive associations with the people who are having the control over their time, life, and money. Until I meet you with the next episode, wish you all the best.